All right, 40K enthusiasts, incoming question. Fritz, starting your own Space Marine chapter. Can you do it? What should we look at? What would be expected? And I think the underlying thought here is if someone puts all their time and effort into building a backstory, creating a Space Marine chapter, you don't want to get to the tabletop and now find out you can't play for some reason. So let's look at a couple of ideas here. From the hobby side, the best piece of advice I can give you, and something that I learned, and this applies really to starting any type of 40K army, but especially if you're going to be looking at your own custom colors, your own custom chapter. You've got your plastics, you've got your kits, you're ready to go. Get 4 or 5 or 6 other Space Marines, used Space Marines, right? Someone in the club, someone in your gaming group has to have some Space Marines that are maybe missing some bits or not complete or just are posed weird, or they're older models from one of the starter sets, you know, Battle for McCrag or something like that. Get a couple of test models and learn and paint on them and see what you like. And I know there's online various army builders where you can paint the shoulder pads some way, and you can paint the helmet, and you can put the stripes on and do the bolter and get an idea of what it looks like. But translating that online or translating that mentally onto the model is huge. And of course, as you start to paint, you're going to notice things look a little bit different. Here's a perfect example of this, and it's actually relating to BattleTech and Chain of Command, and it's really important to illustrate this. My first BattleTech mech company. BattleTech is another miniature type game. It's awesome. I enjoy it. We're going to leave it there because I could talk forever about BattleTech. There's a lot of good BattleTech tactics and mech reviews up on my blog and on my podcast and on my YouTube channel here, of course. That's that plug there. But my first mercenary company was the Dogs of War Mercenary Company. So it's kind of this camouflaged green. It's kind of like a dark green, Dark Angels green. Think of that. And there's white bands on the mechs, kind of like World War I, where they tried to break up the background of a ship and get it to blend, because these mechs are massive. These mechs are tall, you know, the size of like an apartment building or a house on there. So in painting that, that's how I painted them up. But based on the scale of the mechs and when they appear on the gaming table, green is very dark. So the mechs don't really pop. I mean, they blend in as intended. They're actually camouflaged real time. But from a wargaming perspective, visually of our eyes, they were a little bit dark. You know, think about Dark Angels versus Salamanders on the table. Technically, they're both green, but the Salamanders are going to pop. And likewise in Chain of Command, World War II, my excellent gaming friend Dave, when he was painting up his Americans, historical World War II, there's a definitive list of colors that you're going to use, and they match real time 1-to-1. He actually elected and made absolutely the right call to paint his Americans a little bit brighter on it, a little bit lighter with the greens and the browns. And the result is on the table they pop, right? The models are supposed to be key. So in exploring this, you might start to paint your chapter and realize it's a little bit dark, or I want to change something. Utilize that on a couple of test models. That's the practical side that I would absolutely say look at. Now you're going to have a history. You're going to have and explore different things, how you want to play them and stuff, in terms of your narrative and why your chapter is in existence. And that's something that you can evolve, and that's something that you should have because it helps bring that narrative to the game. But now we get into figuring out what you want to play. I have my Red Templars, the Fritz Knights, the Brotherhood of the Sword. Underneath this podcast is a link to my blog. You can search it. You can find these Space Marines there, what I'm talking about. And this Space Marine chapter utilizes Black Templar rules, but they are not painted as Black Templars. So you can certainly make up your Marine chapter and say, I'm going to play generic Marines. You can make up a Marine chapter and play them as Space Wolves, play them as Black Templars, play them as Dark Angels, play them as Ultramarines. Nothing says you have to be locked in to, you know, if you're not painted like Space Wolves, you can't play Space Wolves. Now the challenge here, of course, is in all fairness, it needs to be WYSIWYG. It needs to be exact. So I can't have a Marine with a bolt gun, and now I want to go Black Templars and say, well, you know, this has pistols and chainswords and things like that, or this Space Wolf unit has plasma guns in there, and it doesn't match. It needs to match, because out of fairness for your opponent, they're not so much looking at the paint job that you have. They're looking at, well, okay, that Land Raider, it's Godhammer pattern. It is a Godhammer, right? That squad has 2 plasma guns. They are plasma guns, right? Not, well, no, actually one plasma gun is a plasma gun, but the other plasma gun is a plasma cannon, because I'm playing, Iron Hands, and it's got this and it's got that. You need to make sure your models match what you're going to play. That is the most important. It's not proxying, but it's actually representation 1-to-1. If you do those things, I do not see there being a problem at all with playing and having your own Space Marine chapter. I will say there is a little bit more flexibility. And with my with my Brotherhood of the Sword, I almost committed heresy there. Berserkers of Scalathrax versus Brotherhood of the Sword. Over the years of playing this army, I've switched different things to try it out. A great example in the past was I've always played them as Black Templars, but there was the Sons of Rus are just going to want to challenge me to personal combat. I did play them as Space Wolves for a brief period of time. And the reason why I played them as Space Wolves, if you remember in the old Codex Bjorn, if you killed the Dreadnought, he then became a mission objective. So 40K tournaments at the time they were kind of boring. It was just go out and get objectives. So I would look to contest all the other objectives. You would kill Bjorn in my back field, because he's just sitting back there with the las cannon plinking away. And guess what? It's an objective, and I automatically have it. So I'm up +1 objectives. I'm +1 victory point. And I would also play Lucas the Trickster, because he came with a stasis bomb, where when he got killed, if you were base-to-base contact, you rolled. And it was like, if you rolled a 6, whatever he's in base contact with is gone. So I would use the Lucas the Trickster bomb just for the lulls. Like, oh, you have Abaddon and your super death squad? Well, all I have to do is make base. That's really easy, because I run up and I make base, and we're in base, and you kill me. Of course, you're Abaddon, dude. You're going to splat me. Not that, Lucas wasn't that bad. Okay, roll 1d6. Oh, I got a 6. Okay, your despoiler's gone. What? Run up to Land Raiders, run up to Baby Titans, run up to everything. It was a little bit ridiculous, but the tournament scene was a little bit ridiculous at the time. I was able to switch in and play that. Now, why didn't I play Blood Angels? Well, I didn't want to disrespect Jawa balls, but at the same time, while I could have utilized some of the assault troops and I could have utilized some of the Marines to play Blood Angels, I did not have in my collection Ball Predators. I did not have in my collection Death Company, what they represent, some of the things that are unique to that. This opens up another possibility where you could create your Marine army, generic Marines, and nothing says over time you can't purchase some Ball Predators. You can't purchase some of the things that might be unique to the other Marine chapters out there and incorporate those with the appropriate tactics as you play them. Again, as long as they are WYSIWYG, as long as they are what they appear. The last piece that I don't necessarily agree with, but I see where they're going, the main Games Workshop events right now, they have rules, like Warhammer World and stuff. They have rules. If you show up with Ultramarines, you have to play them as Ultramarines. If you show up and you're not if you want to play Ultramarine chapter, you have to have your stuff painted as Ultramarines. I don't necessarily agree with this. I think it should be you have the ability to switch. Certainly if you're an Ultra fan and you're painted as Ultras, you should play them as Ultras on there. That's in the narrative. But for a chapter that is not painted as Ultramarines, I find that a little narrow-sighted. And I could cite in the narrative where I'm a successor chapter, I'm a specialized chapter, I've adopted, the Codex Astartes, and I'm modeling my chapter after the Ultramarines. I could have been started by the Ultramarines, a little bit of Ultra gene seed, and even though I'm painted different and I look different, that DNA matrix of being an Ultramarine means I want to follow their battle doctrine, or, for Salamanders or White Scars or anything else that you want to play. There are a lot of reasons you can justify it, narrative in the fluff. Those are the points I'd look at starting my own Marine chapter. I will say, having played Defined Marines and playing my own chapter. This is just my personal preference. No disrespect intended. I like playing my own chapter because every single battle with my Brotherhood of the Sword, with the Fritz Templars, with the Red Templars, it's history that I'm creating. It's a narrative that I'm creating. I'm taking battle currency in terms of memories and fun times, and I'm heaping them upon my chapter, my glories that are out there, as opposed to, say, Ultramarines or something else. But that said, now that I think about it, it could be kind of cool to play Ultramarines and know that across the planet, across Holy Terra here, you are playing, you are part of a chapter, you are part of an army playing. Other people are playing Ultramarines right now. Right now, whatever time it is that you're listening to this podcast, there has to be a few players out there literally battling to save the Imperium against various threats, playing Ultramarines, playing 40K right now. So if you have Ultramarines and you're thinking about that and you're playing that, when you're not playing Ultras, someone is playing Ultras and they're adding to the glory of your own army. So that's actually a really interesting concept too. But certainly, starting your own Marine chapter, yes, no problem. Done all the time in 40K, but start with getting a couple of test models and see how they work and see what you can do there.